Members of Canada's Indigenous Environmental Network stage a protest outside the Durban premises of Royal Dutch Shell. They are calling for the oil company to put people's lives ahead of profits by reducing gas emissions.
We're here to protest Shell's involvement in Canada in the tar sands in northern Alberta and their violations of human rights in Indigenous community.
Now, the energy giant Shell says the oil spill in the North Sea has been drastically reduced. But ecologists warn it could take up to 20 years to clean up. It's after the Anglo-Dutch company was forced to admit that more than 200 tons of crude oil leaked into the North Sea. It's said to be the worst spill in British waters in more than a decade and began last Wednesday. But it was only acknowledged by Shell 2 days ago. Adam Ramsey from the UK-based People and Planet student organisation thinks Shell and the government have been complicit in oil industry cover-ups for ages.
The people who are used to dealing with Shell wouldn't be surprised at all about the lack of communication. It's worth remembering that it was only a few days ago that they admitted, after years of lies and cover-up, their role in the enormous spills across Nigeria. So I think we certainly don't know for sure how bad it is, but we do know that this is a serious spill. We know for certain that it's the worst spill in this country in more than a decade. I've seen very little coverage of this at all, and I'm saddened to say that I'm not at all surprised how little coverage there's been of this oil spill. As I say, it's the biggest in 10 years, but it's important to remember that the UK government and the Scottish government have both got long histories of being hand in hand and in the pockets of the oil industry in this country. And so with the government, who are the only other potential monitors of this, doing everything they can to keep it quiet, and Shell particularly not talking about it, it's not surprising that the media aren't covering it. So again, not surprising, but very sad, as you say, a major incident really not reported in the UK press.
According to a leading human rights group, the Shell Corporation has been covering up catastrophic oil spills in the Niger Delta by blaming them on sabotage by local people. Amnesty International says those living there are suffering a, quote, human rights tragedy inflicted by decades of environmental damage caused in large part by Royal Dutch Shell. In a new report, the group says the contamination has damaged farmland, destroyed fish stocks, and polluted the air and water, while the oil company's response has been misleading or inadequate. Shell is the largest operator in the region and has long argued that insecurity in the Delta, where its operations are routinely attacked by militants, is responsible for much of the spillage and resultant environmental destruction. However, the new research alleges the oil giant has exploited the instability and lack of oversight to cover up oil spills caused by its own out-of-date or faulty equipment. The report says, quote, oil companies have huge influence over the investigation of oil spills and other industry-related damage. The companies frequently designate the causes of spills, and communities cannot hold them accountable when they disagree. Independent auditors estimate that up to 13 million barrels of oil have been spilled in the Delta, an amount equivalent to an Exxon Valdez disaster every year for 40 years. Nigeria's own watchdog reports that there are 2,000 current spills, the majority of them from Shell operations.
To deny a people the right to self-determination for well on 100 years is to subject them to slavery. To take away the resources of a people and refuse to give them anything in return is to subject them to slavery. To take away the land of a people who depend solely on land for their survival and refuse to pay them compensation is to subject them to genocide. I accuse the ethnic majority who run Nigeria of practicing genocide against the Ogoni people. I accuse the oil companies which prospect for oil in Ogoni of encouraging genocide against the Ogoni people. I accuse Shell and Chevron of practicing racism against the Ogoni people because they do in Ogoni what they do not do in other parts of the world where they prospect for oil. The devastation of the Ogoni countryside, the complete destruction of the Ogoni ecosystem, the dehumanization of the Ogoni people, the denial to them of education and other health facilities and other social amenities, all these together have led the Ogoni down the way of extinction. I accuse the Nigerian government and the international, multinational companies which prospect for oil in Ogoni of genocide. I appeal to the international community, to the British government, the American government, the Japanese government, the countries of the European community who buy oil from Nigeria to come now to the aid of the Ogoni people and stop this genocide.
He promised us we reign on earth, so shall we reign in heaven. We are the light of the world. Now which kind God be this? However, now Pastor call is the season of greater change. No John called I don't change. A lot change Marco. Akuyon by Father, let the will be done on earth as it is in heaven. After all, I know not of any lawful impediment. Why I, the woman, will not be joined in deep intimacy with my Lord Jesus. You may let Jesus in. Dama baby, you know. So we know. Hello, Kara, we know. You're very low, we beg. I know we know. I said